this is the point I want to stress. BYOA is actually a growing trend, and I think it often gets overlooked in the whole device. We're a device-centric. As humans, we love our devices. We love you're playing with new toys and so on and so forth. But I think what's key is, and what's likely to cause more headaches for CIOs, is that the applications that are coming in on these devices. So just as a show of hands, who has a BYOA strategy in their organisation? No one yet. How do you know whether, do you know that your customer base or your employee base are using their own apps, using public apps for work? Anyone? So how do we manage that? I think the key is, finding the right strategy. You could have a strictly no, public apps work environment, and that's fine. That could work if you educate your employee base that public apps are not suitable in this organisation. Fair enough. There's a number of strategies you could take. You could look to integrate it with anything that's existing in your organisation. You could provide an alternative, so on and so forth. So there's a number of things that I talk about with CIOs about BYOA, is that, again, like BYOD, staff go ahead and do it anyway because it's a groundswell, right? It's not something that's bottom-up driven. It's not something that's really top-down. And when you talk about approach to BYOA, as I was saying, that education is probably key. If your enterprise environment is deemed too sensitive for personal applications to house the information, then so be it. There's another approach is to look at offering alternative, enterprise alternatives to popular apps. People are using personal apps and public apps for a reason. So they're using a file backup service, to take a simple example. And if you can offer that as an alternative, then you've taken away that need and moved it back into corporate. Okay, so the staff member can use that for their personal files, but they don't need to for business. Integrating with public apps to get the data and settings, that's another approach. So most of the public apps in mobile and cloud app architecture, have APIs and they have methods to integrate with corporate apps and what you already have. So that's another approach. And of course, there's the tactical solutions like MDM, MAM to manage the applications on devices. And there's also, another growing trend is, a lot of the public applications have a freemium model where they're free and you can, download it and you start using it. But they also have enterprise versions. Okay, so that's another approach that enterprises can take. They can look at engaging with the company on a commercial way and using the apps with support and so forth. So when I talk to people about BYOA, you've got a whole list of benefits there, including some of the ones I'm familiar with from BYOD, about easy access, cross-platform, they're free, good levels of reliability, user familiarity, so users want to use these apps. And generally there's not much training needed, they're available anywhere, home or office. And they're popular with coworkers, so you get that viral effect, right? So someone will be using file sharing service, that's available publicly, they'll send a coworker a link, and then all of a sudden the coworker gets drawn into using that service because the file that they're looking for is available on it. And generally, the pace of app development is pretty quick. They're always, innovating and iterating quite rapidly. But along, any new technology trend, there also comes a set of risks. So, app and data sovereignty is being a key one. You talk about security, data loss or theft. Account suspension and closure. What do you do if the free service is no longer available? The roadmaps. If they're offering something for free, they generally don't owe people a solid roadmap of where they're headed with it. Data integration, are you going to end up with silos of public applications, mobile cloud in your enterprise that generally can't be integrated in, or it would take a lot of effort to integrate with other parts of the business, right? So that's a big problem. No SLAs, okay, again, they probably say it was a free app, we don't know any SLAs. Privacy, siloed knowledge, which goes back to siloed data. So you might have some people in the organisation with a certain skill set around a particular app that use it well and collaborate and so on and so forth. But if the knowledge is siloed, how do other people in the organisation take advantage of that? And generally, user education is needed to get the most out of apps and so forth, and to educate people on what is appropriate and how appropriate way to use it. Now we asked our CIO respondents what they think of the main reasons for BYOA, for tolerating BYOA. Cost savings again, but productivity improvements. So people are definitely aware that public apps, you know, the ability for people to use it quickly, get the jobs done quickly is, you know, is empowering productivity. So people might not like it. We might have a resentment to using mobile and cloud apps for work, but if it's making people be productive, what do? So you've got to find that balance between, you know, securing the data and availability of an application with, you know, not stifling productivity and say if you ban it at the door, then you can't, you know, you can't be productive with it, obviously. But, you know, employee demand's up there as well. Better access to the new technology, like with devices, you know. So it's available anywhere. A lot of organisations, nearly 20%, don't see any benefits of BYOA. So we'll see. As I said, it's a groundswell thing. It's about, you know, call it consumerisation of IT, but there's so many apps at people's fingertips. There's so many cloud apps available just one click away. The enterprise is going to have to look into this emerging trend. You know, either they're going to be able to be ahead of the curve and manage it, or it's going to come to them. No doubt about that. But BYO support has little interest from IT. Who's interested in supporting personal apps? Anyone? A couple of people? Who has no interest? No interest? Who refuses to do some physical exercise when you're trying to listen to a presentation? Thank you, sir. So, you know, for generally speaking, IT has enough on its hands. IT has enough, you know, problems. They have data integration, they have security, so on. They have their own mobility strategy from a corporate perspective. Think about integrating what's already there. You know, don't think about, as I spoke about earlier, about apps and devices in silos. Think of it as, you know, we need to manage our information, and if that information is coming to us through public apps, then find the best ways to work with them. If not, educate people why. Offer an alternative. They're using it for a reason, so on and so forth. Now, generally speaking, the problem that, you know, CIOs see with BYO in general is it compromises privacy. They see it as, you know, the biggest threat is data privacy. And closely followed by security. Increasing IT support requirements. That's actually interesting because it's fair to say that adoption of BYO IT, whether you call it credit card IT, public devices, public apps, so on and so forth, they enable productivity today. But when something goes wrong, who do they call? They call you people, right? So it becomes IT's problem, doesn't it? It's the user's obsession with using whatever tool they want. They may have little regard for the requirements of IT, but when something goes wrong, oh, my service has been cancelled. You know, you people are the first to know about it. You know, poor integration. Integration is a perennial problem for enterprises in all sorts of areas. So that's one of the things that needs to be looked at for public apps. And other things like, you know, device loss impacting productivity in case of BYOD, you know, app and data sovereignty in case of public apps, so on and so forth. You know, free service might be discontinued. Things like this need to be, you know, all considered as part of your mobile engagement strategy. So you've got a plethora of things to worry about. You've got your corporate stuff, you've got BYOD, you've got public apps, and it's all fun and games. So we asked our CIO respondents what they think about that sort of mix of, okay, you've got devices people are using, and devices that are sanctioned by corporate, and you've got applications, both, you know, and data and applications that are available publicly, data that's being used on a mobile device. And it turns out that we still live in a very device-centric world. So not by much. So majority of CIOs think managing and controlling devices is more important than managing and controlling the applications. But as I said, we just need to be wary that because the device technology is rapidly advancing, we don't want to be left behind thinking about we need to support the device when all along the way we have applications and data that are perhaps more strategic to our interests. Okay, so that's the point I want to really stress. So I'll conclude by talking about, you know, key steps on the path to mobile engagement. I think we've covered the main things pretty well. Mobile devices and networks will continue to rapidly advance, so we'll have 4G networks, we'll have faster Wi-Fi and so forth. This is part of the social trend that's empowering people to use more their own devices and so forth. You know, discover and mend any disconnects between, you know, staff's use of mobile devices and apps and what the organisation currently provides. I'm sure you heard last month that, you know, Microsoft ended support for Windows XP. It's still widely deployed. You know, is there a large disconnect between, you know, someone using their latest, you know, tablet for IT as opposed to what IT can provide with a desktop running Windows XP? So try and think about how the best way is to close that gap. I mean, I'm sure you've all heard the story about people bringing their own IT and own applications. One of the reasons for it is because IT can't keep up, You know, IT can't, that's as far as they're concerned anyway. IT might have another thing to say about that, but you know, users think that you know IT can't keep up with their requirements, right? And especially business units. I'm sure you've all heard that story before. Education and tactical approaches like MDM will ensure public device and app use does not compromise data security. Okay, so that's a given. There are plenty of options available for you to take control of, you know, any sort of data or app on a device. You know, focus on app access and information management, not just devices. You know, mobile device refresh rates are very high. Who's refreshed their mobile device at least once in the past 12 months, 18 months? Yeah, quite a few people. So, you know, that's always a challenge, isn't it? You've got one device with all your settings and your personal information or work information on it, then you upgrade to the next one, so you've got to manage that change process. And ensure your mobile strategy are working to empower staff, not just stifle their productivity. Okay, I think that's, you know, one of the key disconnects is that we have corporate who can offer, you know, secure environments, they offer sanctioned apps, so on and so forth. But on the other hand, you have staff that want the latest and greatest, and everyone else in my team's using it, so why can't I, so on and so forth. I get so much done with this app. So think about, you know, empowering staff, whichever approach you take. It's all about that. So thank you very much for letting me speak at this conference. It's been good. I'll be back for the moderating the partner panel this afternoon. Thank you.